Yeah, so my brother was arrested almost 2 years ago now on August 3rd, 2016. Police officer in DC of the Metro Transit arrested on charges to support, material support to terrorism in the form of $245 worth of Google Play cards.
Worth of what?
It's a gift card, Google Play gift card. So I actually, it's funny because one of my best friends, the day that my brother was arrested, she sent me what Google Play card says on, if you Google what a Google Play card is. And it says, Google Play gift cards allow you to purchase the music, movies, TV shows, books, magazines, and apps and games you love. Unlimited access to millions of songs. And she said, so I don't understand what happened. Did your brother just buy ISIS a bunch of apps to get Taylor Swift CDs? What is happening? Nick would be the first law enforcement officer in the United States to be arrested on charges of terrorism. He's charged with providing $245 worth of Google Play gift cards to a paid undercover informant posing as a friend who had been in his life for several years, who pretended to join the Islamic State, a decision that my brother had adamantly advised against. The exchange of the gift cards capped an undercover investigation into my brother involving at least 6 years of federal government deception in multiple failed sting operations beginning in 2010 or earlier. So it started the furthest thing back that involved the FBI with my brother's a Muslim converted in 2006. So at the time of his arrest, he had been Muslim for 10 years. At the time of his arrest, he had been a police officer for 13 years. So we found out that the first time that FBI was ever spoken to about my brother was in 2008. Actually, someone from his workplace called them. My brother had a dispute with with the seniors of the police department over the length of his beard. He thought that Muslims should be able to have their traditional, if they want to, within a certain length. So he went on this little dispute with them. And also he had a Quran.
Newspaper clippings about cases like these were on his workspace desk.
Yeah, so they called, and he traveled to make Hajj, and they thought a bunch of officers didn't like that he had converted, traveled, they were talking bad about him. So that was what was so suspicious about him, that someone felt that they had to inform the FBI, which is nothing to do with terrorism, it's just being Muslim. Then in 2010, a man named Zachary Chesser was arrested, pled guilty to charges of terrorism. His case was the guy who threatened the South Park creators. He had a website with a bunch of radical stuff on it, and he urged people to go after the South Park creators because they made cartoons of Muhammad or something. So Nick had met this guy twice on a college campus in 2009 for community events, Muslim student organization community events. He spoke to him in passing. Hi, how are you? The kid, he was a lot younger than my brother. He asked him about joining the cadets, going to the academy. My brother said, if you're interested, just give me a call, I'll tell you all about it. My brother has no idea this kid's going online, making a website, talking about weird, radical, whatever, extremists go attack South Park, whatever. He's arrested, this kid's arrested a year later, and that would be the first time that my brother is spoken to, interrogated by the FBI. So the FBI also went to my mother's house, knocked on her door, said they were from his police department, said Nick had been missing. Do you have the phone number of his wife? And my mom said, what wife? And goes, oh, well, he's been overseas and you know he got married, so I guess you weren't invited to the wedding. But this is all a lie. So my mom freaks out, calls my brother. My brother goes back to Metro and says, what the hell are you guys doing at my mom's house, freaking her out, making her crying hysterically? And they said, oh, that was actually the FBI. So then they contacted the FBI and it said, hey, Nick wants to talk to you guys. That would be his the first time he spoke. So that was September 2010. By December.
And he did that without a lawyer?
Oh yeah, he spoke to the FBI many times without a lawyer. He couldn't stop speaking to the FBI. But it happens all the time. I spoke to a ton of my brother's friends who, they just talk to the FBI without a lawyer all the time. They just think, well, if I don't have anything to hide and I'm not doing anything wrong, I'll just speak with them.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, but they also don't know that an FBI agent can lie to them, but you're not allowed to lie to the FBI. And a lot of times the meetings, interviews aren't recorded. They're written summaries that the agents write. But also I think a lot of times Muslim men think that if they do contact a lawyer, that it will make them look like they have something to hide and that they're scared, and so they think it's just easier to speak with the FBI.
I think that's for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, true. But so this gentleman named Khalil, he was an undercover FBI agent, so not a paid informant. He was in my brother's life from 2010 to 2012. And the agent testified at trial. So we took my brother's case to trial. We called the entrapment defense because he basically went for 6 years with zero criminal activity. And he walked around DC with a gun as a cop. So if the FBI was really scared that he was a threat to our national security, that would have hopefully never happened. But so Khalil testified in court behind a screen, so you can't see who he is. He testified he and Nick hit it off right off the bat. It seemed like they had been old friends. They were comfortable with each other. Their conversations just went really well. They met at a wedding. They were both attending the same wedding, so that's how long this man was in the community. Khalil's investigation would show nothing against Nick. Nick did make some comments that sounded violent, and that was used against him. But Khalil testified in court, although the prosecutor tried to get him to say, Nick had a plan. Didn't he have a plan? Khalil said, he did not have a plan. He was joking sometimes. Sometimes he was just talking about hypothetical stuff. This is 5 comments over the course of their 2.5-year relationship. So a lot of times the undercover was wearing a wire, and if there was a group of men and one man was saying something that sounds radical or unpopular, they actually chastised Nick in court for not saying anything. They said, oh, and Officer Young just sat there silent. And it's like, so not only is he being prosecuted for things he's said, on 2 different occasions they chastised him for things he didn't say, just being silent while other people are having conversations. Khalil, the undercover agent, who my brother had a great friendship with, picked up and left, and my brother never heard from him again. Now, in between this time would be when he was approached, I believe, twice in person, twice over the phone to work for the FBI. First, they offered him a full-time job. And then after that, he said no. He loves his work. He does love his work. He was a great cop. He worked for 13 years with 0 complaints against him. He never had to touch his gun. He never had to use his pepper spray. He never had to use his taser. One of the communities that he patrolled called him officer friendly. he loved his job and he was great at it. He was going to retire from that police force and be a beat cop the whole time. He didn't want to sit at a desk. He wanted to be out in the community. He was totally against the new police style of us versus them. And it was more important for him to help someone than to have authority over them. So this is the kind of cop that the communities need. And it's unfortunate because he was pulled away from that. He didn't even have a complaint about rude behavior in 13 years. So the FBI then said, he said, no, I love my job, I'm gonna stay a cop. They said, okay, well, we might have part-time opportunities for you. Something a little bit more sexier than what you do. That's what they said, a little bit more sexier. So they proposed to him that he go in as an informant into mosque and spy on groups of people. Not targets. My brother asked them specifically, would you be telling me what criminal activities this person's involved in that, you know, they're a target? And they literally told him, no, you'd just be gathering information on groups of people. Basic information, where they lived, who they lived with, who was in their home, who they're married to, who they're friends with, who they're sleeping with on the side, stuff like that. My brother 4 times told them no. He found it distasteful. Of course, in his personal conversations, his language was a lot more
Colorful.
yeah, colorful than distasteful. So directly after that would be when the paid informant in 2014 entered his life, and eventually the person who said he was going to go travel overseas and who asked my brother about 3 times to send him Google Play gift cards so he could communicate. The government said he asked for Google Play gift cards to recruit new people to ISIS. My brother says that's not his intention. And they have like 2 sentences at the very last text messages where my brother goes, this is for people to communicate with their families. And then the last text message from the informant. And of course at this point, the informant's phone is being handled by multiple agents. And they said, no, this Google Play gift card is going to be used to recruit people from Sudan. And that was their last sentence to each other. 2 days later, Nick was arrested. So what Nick Smith started getting to is they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that in 2010, before the undercover agent came into his life, that my brother had a predisposition to materially support terrorism. When they raided my brother's house, they found a bunch of Nazi stuff. Clothes, books, memorabilia, collector stuff. The agents who raided called the prosecutor and said, we don't know if this is within the scope of the warrant. Can we pull this stuff? And he said, yeah, go ahead, do it. And at the beginning, we're like, oh my God, all that stuff is gonna get thrown out. Even my brother had guns. He had a lot of guns. We've been shooting guns since we were kids. His guns, we were like, these are all gonna go out because the crime that he committed isn't violent. And also, why is the Nazi stuff there? It's not a hate crime. So the stuff that they got from my brother's house, he studied European history in college. He took a class on racism, European racism, and some of the books were literally from bibliographies in his college papers, which he holds on to everything. So I was able to find reports and the syllabus of this class. He made an A- in it. And it was within my brother's studies of his minor that he got attracted to being a World War II reenactor. So he is one of these people going out. We used to make fun of him for it. I'm like, you're such a nerd. But he did it for like a good 8 years. And it's part of the National Reenactors Society. They have great mission statements. They preserve artifacts from the time period. And my brother is one of the guys who dresses up as the enemy during these reenactments. They performed on military bases and everything. So they use that kind of stuff to say that my brother is a neo-Nazi. He's a Nazi, he's a neo-Nazi, he's a white supremacist.
That's what the government say.
Yeah. What did I say?
You just stated it as facts.
Oh, yeah, okay. So they're saying
He's none of those things.
he's none of those things. They don't have any evidence that my brother held ideologies that would be any of these things. In fact, 2.5 years that he was under investigation, he was dating a Jewish girl. And they know this. In one of their interviews, they ask him, oh, you would marry someone who's not Muslim? Speaking about her. And he said, yes. Like, this was the love of his life at the time. But so the prosecution before trial says, we are calling in an expert witness. This man, his name is Dr. David Gerenstein Ross. He claims that he was born Jewish, converted to Islam, was radicalized within a year, and now he's Christian. And now he's an expert on radical Islam.
Wow.
So he writes a report. The government pays him $16,000 to write a report specifically for my brother's case of why white supremacist radicalization would lead someone to be radicalized into militant Islam. This is true, and the judge let this in.
Without any findings on the record, with
Yeah.
no voir dire of the witness before taking the stand.
So, I mean, we tore the witness up in cross in trial. It was, I said it was like painful to watch. I said, oh my God, if you go in on him anymore, it's gonna be inhumane. He had never been, I think I have it written down, on a cross of him. So the case is now hinging on this idea, this conspiracy, that neo-Nazis and white supremacists would lead someone down the path to militant Islam. So on cross testimony, he acknowledges that there are tons of white supremacists are racist, and that hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world are ethnic minorities and non-whites. And so basically, why does that make sense that a white supremacist would convert to Islam? So it came out that he's never testified as an expert in any case on this connection between white supremacy and militant Islam. He's never testified in a criminal case at all. He does not have any peer-reviewed publications on his thesis that there's a connection between white supremacists and militant Islam. He's never had any peer reviews on the subject at all. His writings on the subject consist of 2 popular press articles, he says. Those 2 articles were published on the
Bill
web.
Kristol's magazine. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so basically we just tear this theory apart, which should be enough on its own to say beyond a reasonable doubt, no, this man was not predisposed to support militant Islam, because look how desperate they're getting, and they had to bring up Hitler in a terrorism case. And the jury, unfortunately, didn't see that. They'd been a whole week of basically a public lynching of my brother, a character assassination, and the emotions behind both Nazis and terrorists. I believe our arguments, as strong as they weren't strong enough to get through someone's emotions. My brother was found guilty, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison with another 15 years of supervised release. In that court circuit, that sentence of 15 years is more than, that's me. That was my 25 minutes.
Continue.
But that sentence is longer than people get for manslaughter in that district. I think it's a third longer than manslaughter in that district. But so our appeal is due on the 21st of this month, and we're moving forward with a very strong, aggressive appeal. It is our conviction that this case will not hold up. We didn't want it to get to this level. We didn't think it would get to this level. We thought Nick would be the first person to win an entrapment case on terrorism charges in the United States, and that didn't happen, so we're going to appeals.